Hello and welcome. You are here for the Imperium's impressions on Maul's new sizzlingly sieve hot Star Wars show, Darth Maul Shadow Lord, or Maul Shadow Lord. I guess it's not much of a Darth anymore. As many of you probably already know, the series takes place around 1 year after the Clone Wars, so after Maul gets arrested in the 7th season of the Clone Wars during the Siege of Mandalore arc, and escaped Republic custody during the events of Order 66 in the final episodes of the Clone Wars. This series fills a large gap in Darth Maul's resume on how he ended up rebuilding his criminal enterprise and empire, and how he ends up appearing at the end of Solo and of course in Star Wars Rebels. This series takes place on a new planet called Janix, which is in the mid-rim of the galaxy and has been said by many to have a very heavy Gotham feel to it, from Batman obviously. It's futuristic and sophisticated looking, but dangerous and seedy. I feel they must have had a look a bit at the concept art for Star Wars 1313 for this, the highly anticipated cancelled M-rated Boba Fett game, which was going to take place on Coruscant's crime-ridden lower levels such as 1313. Also, it does, and a lot of people have said this also, but it is true, it also gives vibes of some of those episode 2 Coruscant chase scenes, the bounty hunter's pursuit, probably the best part about that film. So that was a nice surprise. That was very much welcome. I find it funny that I've been getting heavily into Star Wars The Old Republic recently, the good old MMO from 2011, and I just got to Nar Shaddaa in the game, a hut around a colony world with, well, obviously a lot of crime rampant around, being ran by huts, but the visuals are to a degree strikingly similar. So saying that, Janix in a sense isn't anything new to Star Wars, but it's well executed here, and I like how we see some of the law enforcement's perspective on clamping down on rampant organised crime in the series so far. And talking about the law enforcement elements in the series, one of the new characters in the show is a detective called Brandon Lawson, voiced by Brazilian actor Wagner Moura, who portrays Pablo Escobar in the great series Narcos, which is a good series, so if you do like this sort of stuff, definitely do give Narcos a look, even if it's a lot more mature than what you'll see in Star Wars. Brandon Lawson is the primary secondary protagonist outside of Maul alongside the Jedi Padawan Devin, who I'll get onto in a bit. Lawson is investigating tensions between the Syndicate and Janix, and eventually Maul gets on his radar after a bank heist in the first episode, which was orchestrated by Maul's remaining criminal clique. Devin is a Jedi Padawan survivor who seems to be getting disillusioned and feeling conflicted about her Jedi teachings and her master Iko Diodaki, who keeps clinging onto old Jedi ways that work quite contrary to surviving in a post-Order 66 galaxy for surviving Jedi. Maul and her end up crossing paths at the end of the first episode, and by episode 2, Maul is already trying to show her a new perspective on what it means to survive as a Force user in a new, unpredictable galaxy under an oppressive empire. She still seems to disparage Maul's views at the end of the second episode, but this dynamic and dialogue of beliefs between the two is going to grow and change during the show. There are obviously other characters in the show who appear, for example, like Lawson's likable droid partner, and quite funny and useful tactical droid in Maul's criminal clique that almost seems to enjoy trolling its foes. I didn't expect to be so entertained by the presence of the Syndicate bosses Demis and Vario in the show either. Especially Vario. He has a bit of an American-Italian mobster mentality, forget about it! Also him being a tiny little prick in a mini-mech was funny, and Demis being this chunky, buff, angry grand male, which we haven't seen before, was fun. Rook Kast also returns from the Maul-centered Son of Dathomir comic series and the 7th season of the Clone Wars. She's a bit of a silent fan favourite, including mine, and it's nice seeing at least one familiar face alongside Maul in a show with mostly fresh new faces. She's a very loyal follower and soldier of Maul's, and I would even say she almost acts like his second in command. I mean, hey, who doesn't like a good-looking criminal gal who's also a female Mandalorian femme fatale? And as mentioned prior, this show is a sequel spin-off primarily to the 7th season of the Clone Wars animated TV series, which in part, that season Specifically, the final Siege of Mandalore arc was a sequel to the 4-issue Son of Dathomir comic miniseries, which adapted unproduced Clone Wars series plot points. Those comics told what Sidious did with Maul after capturing him at the end of the 5th season of the Clone Wars. This is the season where Maul and his brother initially got up to Maul's nefarious galactic criminal enterprise shenanigans on Mandalore. And yeah, I know, a bit of a word salad this section, but my point with that is that a lot of casual Star Wars fans might not exactly know how much established lore and plot points this series builds upon, and the show definitely does not explain these prior storyline details and does expect the viewer to know of them prior. This obviously helps with keeping a tight-knit pace of an animated show. I mean, the first episode is 30 minutes and the second is the usual 24 these animated Star Wars shows have kept prior. But this obviously creates a small barrier to entry, but you can still definitely enjoy the show regardless. I mean, I've never read the Son of Dathomir comics and I've only seen the Clone Wars series, but still managed to stay up with the show, and my father, who's admittedly more of a Trekkie, who has never seen any of the animated TV shows and is only a minor casual fan of Star Wars, said those 2 initial episodes were pretty good. But for most people, I do suggest you have at least seen the Clone Wars animated show. Then you at least know why Maul is even alive after the Phantom Menace, and what his whole deal with criminal syndicates are, and then maybe read a bit up on the Son of Dathomir comic series as bonus research. Albeit I should definitely maybe review Son of Dathomir for the channel someday. To continue about the show and its production though, the show's new striking animation quality compared to previous animated Star Wars shows helps to sell this gritty Gotham-like planet, with plenty of close-up shots where you can see Lucas Animation flexing their new graphical fidelity capabilities for this show. And something I haven't heard people really mention much, but how much better the lighting in this show looks compared to anything they've done before. It really helps to sell these dark, neon-lit cyberpunk streets and cityscapes on Janex. It looks, well, next-gen and almost like the old Clone Wars animation style got a ray tracing patch or something. The show, I noticed also, is more shot like a film, with a lot of delicate, almost symbolic, metaphor-esque angles at times. And I do emphasize at times, not always, but it definitely has more of a film look to it, which makes the production feel a lot more adult, in my opinion. The voice acting, sound mixing, and production is top-notch, as always for these Star Wars animated shows. I must give special shout out to the sound mixing, because most shows nowadays really are just crap with their audio mixing. Audio levels felt consistent across these episodes, and explosions weren't too overtly loud over dialogue, or dialogue in general wasn't muffled during any loud scenes. The soundtrack wasn't anything per se memorable, but wasn't bad, and did help set the tone of the noir, gritty vibe this show is going for. So it was serviceable, absolutely. Sam Witwer, of Forced Unleashed fame, and frankly nowadays of Darth Maul fame, who voiced him in the Clone Wars series, returns for this series, and god, his performance is still as chillingly good as it was in the Clone Wars. Witwer is just able to embody this well-spoken but slurred, manic, quiet rage in Maul's speech, which is still very much felt in this show as it was in the Clone Wars. So, fortunately, Maul does steal the show each time he's on screen in his own show, so the show does deliver on that aspect. Maul seems to have developed as a character a bit, or more so, at least developed some patience and to think ahead, rather than giving in to his rage immediately. You can tell he still applies the teachings Sidious taught him also, by not revealing himself too early, and playing your opponents against each other rather than doing all the dirty work yourself. And talking about Sidious, Maul's intentions in the show seem to revolve around him trying to reorganize and rebuild his criminal empire to attempt some type of revenge or damage against his old empire's new empire. He also, of course, wants to recruit a new apprentice in Devin, but I'm sure this still plays into his plans of galactic revenge or whatever Maul mentally thinks of his plans as. That is one part of Maul we know never changes, his core Sith belief, or more so obsession, of revenge, which we know doesn't end up doing him any favours in Rebels. Maul grows to learn new techniques on preparing and executing a plan for revenge, but never learns to outgrow revenge as a lifestyle. So, did the first 2 episodes deliver? Yes, I would say so. It wasn't anything mind-blowing, but it was a very solid and, I would say, great setup for the rest of the series, even if these 2 episodes already consisted 20% of the first season, albeit, fortunately, Season 2 was just announced. But I would say these 2 episodes were mostly set up character-wise, and reintroducing Maul as a character to the show, and Janix. But we did get to see some great combat and chase scenes. Like I said, one of the scenes has a big Episode 2 Bounty Hunter's Pursuit vibe to it. And there were definitely some good lightsaber massacres and slaughter scenes inspired by Darth Vader's iconic hallway massacre at the end of the Rogue One. Well, I suppose Darth Maul also has a massacre scene now, or many of them, so he's in the Hall of Fame when it comes to the Sith doing that now. And I would say even one of those slaughter scenes felt very reminiscent of Terminator's police station massacre scene, mixed in with something like Alien Romulus. Although, sadly, not as violent. The show's still rated 12 plus here in Europe. Well, those were my thoughts and impressions on the first 2 episodes of Maul Shadow Lord. Hope you definitely enjoyed this first episode of my Shadow Lord Impressions video series. If you did, please hit the like button, maybe even give your thoughts in the comments. And if you super loved this video and also like wargaming like Star Wars Legion, Warhammer 40,000, trading card games such as Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, maybe consider subscribing to the Imperium. The Imperium can always use another fine soldier to its cause. Well, until next time, people, stay fresh.